And I discovered recently that thoughts on the much higher dimensional level, which I refer to in my book as the super-dimensional levels, thoughts become in themselves objects which are beyond the concepts we think of in terms of association or energy, in terms of feeling, On that dimensional level, thoughts incorporate everything like that. And the way the energy of feeling or content of the thought or idea of the thought is all combined in thought form. And the way the thought form expresses itself is in an incredible diverse shape, which has color, design, expansion and movement all combined. And when we are on this expanded level of consciousness, we become simultaneously aware of the whole of the thought with our feeling, because we inhabit each aspect of the thought. So it's an awareness of thinking, instantaneous awareness, rather than following a thought through words and then association to another words and gradually building up a picture. On the super-dimensional level, we innovate, or we are an intrinsic part of the thought, and we have a instant understanding not only of the thought in itself, but of the root of the thought, where the thought comes from. For example, if you take the thought of power on the lower dimensional level, we would associate power perhaps with force, with violence, perhaps, with negative aspects. On the higher, on the super-dimensional level, we would actually see the root of power, and the root of power would be its origin, the light, the consciousness it came from. So we always, whatever thought we look at, we see its connection to its origin, and this gives us a much better understanding of the world. If we start comprehending the world from this viewpoint and thoughts, we arrive at a totally new thinking, which is beyond what we're used to. So we would immediately elevate our mindset to a super-dimensional way of thinking, or an illuminated thinking. At the moment we think in a paranoid way. We make references to our individual self. We see it all, the world, in reference to what we believe and who we are. Illuminated thinking is looking at the world from a position of stillness and seeing everything as an equal in its connection and how it relates to each other. So it's an unselfish way of thinking. We think in the system of wholeness rather than in the system of individualizedness. And I believe that is the only way we will ever solve our problems, by arriving at a new way of thinking.
Wow, that's very deep stuff, Jurgen.
Yeah.
You've pretty much given us a lot to think about. We're probably going to have to start wrapping this interview up. So, is there something you'd like to sort of leave us with? Any sort of thoughts for the day?
Well, my thought for the day is always to live in the moment, and by that I mean appreciate the moment, and not be sidetracked by the clutter in your mind. And then you appreciate everything, even as I've learned, even bad things they can still be appreciated in some way and benefited from. Looking at things where things are rooted in, and what they're carried by, which is, in my opinion, is stillness. Looking at it from that point of view is much more satisfactory. I think the reason I was properly trained to think from an early age was I had my father died when I was very young, and at his funeral there were literally hundreds and hundreds of people, and he was a very popular man, and and I remember when I was very little, my parents went for a walk, and my father, every time they met people, he drew his hat and said hello, and continuously would do this gesture, because everybody knew him in the town, in the small town where we lived in. And I asked my mother whether, when I'm grown up, that I can have a hat like my dad, because it really impressed me. And my mother said, your father doesn't say hello to people. You know, when he says hello, he says hello to their souls.
Wow.
You know,
how powerful is that?
And that sort of stuck with me. And I thought, and he didn't have any enemies, you know. And I remember him as a child. That was who he was, you know. And I wasn't like that, you know. I still had fights with my brother and things. But I think maybe that's food for thought. If we look at people, not the people we think we are, whether it's a marriage partner we don't get on with, or employee or an employer we don't get on with, why not for a moment just ignore the person they represent, but speak to the person which creates them behind it, the stillness which makes this happen, and then suddenly all the stress may perhaps become a little bit easier of relationship with it. And I think this basically applies to everything we come across in life, you know. Wow. Whether it's the rain, you know.
Yes, which I got a bit didn't quite appreciate yesterday, because when I, you know, for the last 2 months I've been planning this manifestation adventure, and the weather has been absolutely stunning on a day-to-day basis, and the moment I literally stepped out onto the road, there was on and off showers for about a 2-hour period, and I found myself very quickly sort of complaining about what was quite clearly outside my control, but you know, not in too long a period of time, found myself coming back to this point of observing the reality and appreciating the beauty of it, and the fact that I have this freedom to actually be on the open road, where a lot of people are stuck in sort of jobs where they'd love to perhaps be in my position. So it is about really appreciating reality for what it is and stop projecting onto it. In a sense. And
also it's good to remember that above the clouds the sun shines constantly.
I will remember that, Jurgen, the next time there's a rain shower, that the sun is shining above. Right, okay. Well, on that note, we're going to finish off this interview. So, Jurgen, thank you very much for your hospitality. It's been very nice of you to share with us. And hopefully, if I find my way back this neck of the woods within these 60 days, it would be nice to maybe continue and deepen our conversation.
Okay, thanks, Todd.
Thank you very much, Jurgen.
Thank you.